Hi. Well, this is the video for help about the activity of the project number one. But now you know that there is only one project. There is no project two. It's only project one. All right. So first, I'm going to follow this activity, right? I will try to do everything what is indicated here. Well, not everything. I mean, most of the time in all of this video, what I'm going to do mainly is to explain what you have to do. All right. But of course, I'm going to read through all the activity. So we start. It says, all right, part one, library assignment, Google Scholar versus MinerQuest. You know, these two are two engine for searching. So the one that is for everybody is Google Scholar, and the one that we have here for YouTube is the one that is called the MinerQuest. This part of the activity will help you distinguish between the information found on an internet search engine and information found on a library subscribed database. Step 1. Using Google Scholar, find information about social media and one of the following terms to fill in the blanks. Then circle, highlight, or underline the word you choose. For example, so here, so we have to focus on social media. This is step number 1. And besides social media, another topic so far, for example, technology. Then you have to go to Google Scholar, is here, and type those two topics, social media and technology. And there you have. Yeah, type social media and technology. Next, what do you have to do? How many results did your search retrieve? That number is here. You see that one? 500 millions, 20,000. So here, 500 million, 20,000. Next, what are the top 3 results retrieved? Well, here you will have to put those, but of course, are the ones that you see immediately here. For example, social media technology and government, teen social media and technology, internet and social media technology in the family context. So the first 3 articles that you find, or the first 3 results that Google Scholar is presenting to you, you have to write down. You have to mention only this by now. That okay? This for me. These are the 3 results that Google Scholar has for me this time. So you have to enter that here. And then next it says use the next 5 results to check for the following. So here we have to complete this table. Full text, free to read, yes, no. The author information, mention the author. The URL, I mean the extension edu government arc, and the day published or posted or updated. If nothing, if this information is not available, right, in A. So you will have to put this for every article that you have here. For example, after the tree, I have to consider the activity says after the tree, the next one. Notice this is the next one, and I have to consider the next five after the first tree. So the first one after the first tree, one, two, three, is this one. The political power of social media technology. So notice it is .org. So it seems, I don't know if it is free to read, but usually I think this one it is, right? Well, I think I wouldn't say this is free to read because it says read and download. Log in through your school or library. I don't know. To be honest, I think YouTube is associated to this page, so maybe I would have to enter my YouTube credentials. But in general, I wouldn't say it's free. I mean, no, not everybody can access to this article. And you have the main information. But I think with that, this is okay. So here, so I want to put here, is free to read? No. We need to enter our credentials. I mean, if you are not studying, if you are not enrolled in YouTube, then there's no way you can read. Well, I mean, maybe you can read, but if you are enrolled in other university, but what I mean is, I think a simple person that is not maybe in a college or something like that, I think that person is not going to be able to read it. The author, I think the author, Clay Shirky. The URL, I think it was, yeah, you see that? .org. .org. They publish January or February of 2011. I'm going to use January. And there you have. You have to repeat the same for the next 4 articles you find in your search. That okay? So that you can complete this table with the other next 4 articles until you have 5. All right, next. Part D. From your results, find one article that is scholarly peer-reviewed and provide the following information. This is the same information you need to make a reference for this source. All right, but first, what is this peer-reviewed? Many times it's not very simple to know whether the article is peer-reviewed, but you will have to put this information: the article title, the publication, the journal title, and the volume maybe, and the author or the authors. But to have an idea what a peer-reviewed article is, I posted on Blackboard something for you, that information. I mean, it says here, what is a peer-reviewed article? An article that has been reviewed by a group of experts in the field, sometimes called a board of editors. Reviewed is another term for peer-reviewed. I'm reading this part. See that? But it's not simple to know whether a given article is peer-reviewed, but usually articles from very famous or with so much importance, right, in academic, right, they're going to be peer-reviewed. But in this case, if you are not sure, please ask a librarian. Yeah, you can do it at YouTube, okay, or make a phone call, and so that you can be sure that your article is peer-reviewed. And then after that, you will have to write down here the article title, the publication, the journal title, volume, issue, and year, and the author. And that's all what you have to do for part D. Yeah. Now, step 2, you will have to do the same. You will have to do the same, but now for minor quests. Minor quest is the search engine that we have at YouTube. It's this one. Minor quest search. You see, you're going to do exactly the same process as I did before, that you have done before, but now you're going to do it here. So the same. Notice the how many results. What are the top 3 results? You have to complete this table. Find one article that is scholarly and provide the following information. So the same. You have to do the same as you have done before, but now you have to do it for minor quests. Okay? Now, here, Google and minor quests are both good tools to use and both have their drawbacks. Respond to the next question by using your criterion. Here it's mainly up to you. Right? Use your criterion, and you can also investigate in the internet if you want. So you have to mention the pros for minor quests, cons, and pros for Google Scholar, and cons. And you will have to enter that information here. That okay? So that is up to you. So you do it. Next, if you need help with the part 1 of this activity, contact a librarian at liveanswers.youtube.edu or in person or at the reference desk. Now, we are done with this part of the activity. What is next? Important. From now on, based on the first part, you need to select 2 articles to answer the next parts of the activity. 2 articles to answer the next parts of the activity. By now, but they can be any articles. About the topic of your interest. They can be any articles about the topic of your interest. So, at this point, again, you can forget the topic we used before. I mean, we use social media on one of these topics. Those are okay for the parts we have completed, but from this point on, you can choose any 2 articles that you want for any topic that you want. That okay? No problem with that. Of course, you have to look for them on Google Scholar or in minor quests. All right. The part 2, main components of an article. Introduction. When reading a statistical article, there are common components we would like to consider. These components guide the interpretations and conclusions we draw from the research study. For this section, we will focus on 6 questions, right, to answer about your articles. These 6 questions are derived from the 12 components we studied in the module number 2 in this course. So you want to go over the module number 2, what we covered there. So I think this time is highly recommendable. And then answer the 6 questions for each of your articles. Compare and contrast between the 2 articles. All right. Again, I won't do everything here. I mean, I think this is not very complicated to do. But remember, for your articles, is observational or an experiment. Well, let me look for one article of my interest. I'm going to do it on Google Scholar. What about something? I don't know. This is coming to my mind right now. I'm going to use, for example, video games and violence. Let's see what we have. So I'm trying to video games, for example. This seems interesting. Video games and children, violence in video games. So notice, I think the PDF of this article is completely here. The PDF for this article is here, so complete. This article, or what? I think this is a 17-year-old student. Warren Laffer is a life sentence for repeatedly battering his 14-year-old friend Stefan. Oh my God, with a hammer and stabbing him to death at the local. Oh, this is violence and sexuality in video and computer games. Loss to benefit ratio. Conclusion, references. So, well, doesn't seem to be like a very good article, right? But well, anyway, yeah, it doesn't mean that you're going to find something that you like at the first time. Maybe you have to look for that several times. But I think here is this observational or experiment. Remember, in class we covered essentially two kind of statistical studies: observational and random experiment. Essentially, remember that in the observational studies, let me write it here so you can remember. In the observational, the explanatory variable is not manipulated. In the experiments, explanatory variable is manipulated. So essentially we have that. So you have to mention the response, explanatory and response variables, the intended population. Is this prospective or retrospective? I mean, this is going to be only go over this concept on the module 2. I mean, this applies only to these two concepts. They apply only to observational studies. Can you determine cause and effect from the study design? Are confounding variables? Remember, confounding variables are variables that are related, that maybe they have an effect on the explanatory variable and response variable, but you don't care about those variables. It's something like that. So again, go over the concepts in the module number 2. You have more doubts about this, but you will have to respond this, all right? For your 2 articles that you find, for the 2 articles of your interest, remember that after the part 2 we have completed the part 1, and from this you can select 2 articles to answer the next parts of the activity. What articles? Any article that you want of any topic of your interest. If you don't find at the first time, you don't find something, one that is interesting, keep searching. Keep searching. Part 3. What is the part 3 about? The way data is collected impacts the analysis process. In module number 3, you learn about continuous and categorical data. This has to do with numerical variable. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I did a mistake. This one has to do with numerical variables. We saw two kinds of numerical variables, continuous and discrete. So the other variable is categorical. So the main two variables, they are numerical variables and categorical variables. Then you were also introduced to graphical and numerical ways to summarize the data. These summaries provide a snapshot of the overall data set and are the first step in statistical analysis. In this section, you will determine what type of data was collected for your article and how the authors choose to summarize it. You know, the problem here is that maybe in the article that you're looking for, they don't use all of these methods. So what can we do in that case? Well, keep searching. If you want, put NA. So details. Read about how the research team collected the data for the two variables you pick. Decide if each variable is explanatory and response. I mean, once you have read your article, or in each article, you will have to identify the explanatory and the response variables, and then determine whether they are categorical or continuous and give a brief explanation. If the variable is continuous, give the possible range for the values. If the variable is categorical, give the categorical options, right? Remember, categorical is, for example, color, red, green, black, white, yellow, and so on. The data summaries are going to be a mixture of numerical and graphical. Look for tables and graphs presented under the data section. When describing this, identify what types of summaries are used. For example, summary that we cover in class, means, ranges, percentages, and in which variables. If you find a graph or summary that is particularly interesting, you can include it as a picture in your paper. For example, maybe you can find here box plots, stem plots, histograms, bar charts, and so on. And you have to respond to these questions. Define if the explanatory and response variables are categorical or continuous. Describe the summaries used for the data. I mean, where you find means, ranges, percentages. If it doesn't apply, write NA, but not available. But I'm not searching for one article that has that right now, because I don't want to lose so much time on that. But you have time, right? I mean, you're supposed to have time, so try to look for an article that has something like that, and then compare and contrast your article methods. So what else? Oh yeah, for these summaries, Try to look for mean, standard deviation, range, quartiles, mode, variance. We covered that in class. Part number 4, hypothesis testing and analysis. Here in the 2 articles, you have to consider this. An important component of research studies analyzing differences for statistical significance. The form we have seen that in the from module I think 11. So the formal process for doing this is called hypothesis testing. The hypothesis test is a framework for distinguishing whether the observed differences are due to natural variation or a treatment effect. You will see an introduction to the overall hypothesis testing process in module number 1. I think this should be module number 11. I think this is a mistake. Well, types of hypotheses are used depending upon the data type and expected relationships. For now, we will identify separate components of hypothesis tests and learn how to apply them later. You identify and classify the main variables in the part 3 of this activity. In the statistical analysis section of your articles, look to see which variable the researchers choose to do statistical tests on. So some key tests you may encounter are t-tests, chi-square, ANOVA, and regression. Maybe you can find also confidence intervals. So for example, let's see if I'm more lucky next time, if I'm luckier next time. So let's see, for example, I'm going to look for another one. Violence in E-rated video games. Violence, sex, race, and age in popular video games. Content analysis. I don't think they have here something like that. Abstract. Well, it seems I cannot read this, you see? This is not for free. It says get access, so. Buy the article, so I cannot read it, right? Yeah, I'm sorry, so you keep reading, but in the article, in your 2 articles, you will have to find, you will have to report whether you have this t-test, chi-square, ANOVA regression test. We have seen this in class, so I think you have an idea about what they are about now. The numbers included in the analysis section are often the test statistic. Usually they are going to be presented like this: t equal to 1.45 and p-values. For example, p equal to 0.0272. Each test has a unique way of calculating the statistics. All test statistics have a p-value associated with them. Find these values and report them along with the type of test. You may also find confidence intervals in this section. These are related to the test statistic and margin of error. And then questions to respond. Identify the variables and the type of statistical analysis used in this article. I mean, what it is about. This, you will have to report this, whether there are t-tests, chi-square, ANOVA regression, p-values, and compare the 2 articles. Is that okay? Part number 5, limitations and conclusions. Again, with the 2 articles, define a component of a research study to identify limitations. In this section, the author acknowledges how far the results can be reasonably extended based on the study design. They may address what the study did well, along with what was lacking. It is also typical to offer up thoughts or changes for future research endeavors. Details. There is frequently a section of the paper called limitations. Look for this section. Again, try to look for an article that has this section, right? Again, take some time looking for that. So that is the first place to start. If it is not explicitly stated, this information may be in the conclusion of the paper. Look for things the author thinks went well and what they would change. Limitations may be related to the sampling methods, the way the data was collected, or the way the analysis was conducted. When finding the flaws, be sure to include a brief explanation as to why this is a limitation. The authors have certain points of view they express in the article. They likely made some assumptions about their research with the way they have sampled or defined variables. And then what you have to do, questions to respond. It's simple. In the article, in the section, you will have, in the two articles, you will have to identify the limitations by the authors. And then, are there any other limitations you see? This is up to you, right? I mean, what do you think? Which paper was better and why? Which paper was better and why as to this? Do you have any other suggestion for their future research? This again, this is also up to you, right? It's like your opinion. And did you disagree with any of their assumptions? Again, this is your opinion. So include also conflict of interest. If nothing, write in it. But I think most of the article they should have this, right? Look for an article that they have these things, right? All right, I think that's all that what you have to do with this. Again, in summary, only the part one, you will have to find some articles by using social media on some of these concepts. But after that, from when you finish the part number one, you can choose any two articles about the topic of your interest. Any two articles. And then with those two articles, you will have to complete part two, part three, part four, and part five. I know that it's hard to find an article that they have everything, but if you think that one article doesn't have everything, then only mention that NA, not available for that article, or maybe two articles. But take a time looking for a good article that they have all of these components. If you have any question, send me an email to let me know. That's all by now. See you later.